Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another overdue video from the Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. What I've been working on this time, and I have spent a lot of time on this area, which is why the video has taken a long time to happen. There was very little to show until I get to this stage, but I'm working on the section that goes between these baseboards here, which you've seen before. The back scene is over there, that drops down and runs along to the original part of the layout, which is over here. Don't worry about the clamps, they're just holding it in place because at the moment it slides about. It's under here, it's some more speed frame, some more of this material here, and it does tend to move about on top of that speed frame. Eventually there will be something to stop it, but I haven't worked that out yet. But you can see up here one of the bridges. This is the single track bridge. There is a double track version of that, which I have some parts of here. This is the double track width piece, and that's the single track. I have built all the other three sections, but they're not joined together yet. What I've been doing is working out whereabouts that bridge goes, and where it's sitting is about the right position from end to end. The angle that it sits at is not yet determined exactly, because it's all dependent upon track alignments at both ends. I've got to be able to align the tracks up here, which at the moment are heading over towards the window, to get them to come straight across the bridge and align with the tracks at this end, which also have to come, which will also have to come at an angle, whatever the angle of the bridge is. So the bridges themselves are products again of scalemodelScenery.co.uk. The bowstrings are LX076 and LX03600, which are the single and double track versions, and the squared off ones are LX10400 and LX10500. Again, they are the single and double track. I'm not sure which one's which, but go on to Scale Model Railway Scenery site and you will find out why. Now, you can buy much cheaper laser cut. These are laser cut MDF. You can buy much cheaper laser cut bridges, but they're not as good. These have little rivet plates that you fix on that really make the bridge look as if it's solid. They also, the bowstring bridge has a rivet strip all the way across the top, which looks very nice. And as it happens, I've just been on to Scale Model Scenery and asked if Justin can prepare me some of these strips to go over the tops and down the sides of this bridge. And I'm waiting for a reply on that. I've just stuck them together. They are just glued across their joins with PVA. It seems to hold okay. And I've sprayed them with just a car primer, Battleship Grey. Now, what you can see is that, and I'll pick that other bridge up again, what you can see is that they have a real lattice underneath the bridge that the tracks sit on. I've started to do a bit of weathering on this one, which the tracks sit on. Sorry, I need to hold that up high enough, don't I? Now, a real lattice underneath that the tracks sit on, and as I say, I've done a bit of weathering on here, and the tracks, I'm going to sit there and there where the markings for the tracks will be. These are not at standard Hornby spacing, and they're not at standard Pico track double track spacing. But I don't think anybody's going to put point work on the bridge, because where will you put the point motors? So you can space your track out to suit that and then bring it back to the normal spacing you use. This is, I think, about 57 millimeters. Hornby's spacing is 67, so it's 10 mil more. Pico spacing is 50, so it's 7 mil less. But you know, it's not a problem to me. But as you can see along the top here, it's a little bit plain and could do with a rivet strip. Actually, that one is an odd bridge, which is also why I want the rivet strip, because it will make the bridge the same width as this one. This is another one. For some reason, I think Justin has redesigned these pieces so they're now wider on this bridge and look much better. They're just stuck on pieces on the edge. But that's where I want to put the rivet strip, all the way along there and down there and down there on both sides of all 4 bridges. But because of this lattice work under here, when you lay a track on it, you find a piece of Hornby track. It'd be nice if I could find a short piece, but there we go. No, that's not straight. Try that bit. Okay, here's a straight piece of Hornby track. I'll just hold it in there like that, about where it's going to go. It doesn't look quite right because it's got wooden sleepers, and tracks on bridges may well not have sleepers at all. They often have a gap between them and they're bolted onto the girder work. I'm no expert on this, so there probably are as many exceptions to that as there are ways of doing it. But what I've decided to do is I want some walkways on these bridges so that maintenance staff can cross them easily and safely. So what I've been doing is building walkways for the sides here, not the centre yet, but I need to put one for the centre there and for the sides here, and also some walkways to go along the centre of the tracks so that you can actually cross the track easily. And what I'm going to do now is show you a bit more about how I've gone about that, which will form the majority of the time that I've spent between videos. So I'm going to move the camera and be back in a sec. Okay, down at the bench now, and I've got the bridge, which actually disappears way off that way, and I've got a piece of track. Now this piece of track is plenty long enough, as you can see, to do the whole bridge. It's actually Hornby straight tracks joined together. This one is, and I can never remember, is an R603, which is the longest straight that Hornby do, and the one on this end here is an R601, which I think is what they call a long straight. This one's an extra long straight. Now what I'm doing is I'm making these bridges removable, so you will be able to pick the whole bridge out for maintenance underneath it and for building the scenery underneath it. And to that end it will sit on some piers, one at each joint, which you can barely see. There's a joint there at this end and to the other end. Those piers are not yet designed. Those pieces of wood that you saw in the early part of the video are not the piers, they just happen to be approximately the right height. I'm still working out what I'm going to do for piers. What I hoped to do was 3D print some, but that is looking completely impossible now, due to the fact that I can't actually emboss the surface with 3D printing, which is something that I really would want to do. So I say I can't. I haven't come up with a sensible way of doing it, so I'm not probably going to try that. I'm going to go for a different method. But the jury's still out on that one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But this track is Hornby track and it's straight, and that's the important thing, because I need the track to go straight through the bridge. I don't want the track deviating. But what I intend to do is not start it at the end of this track, but to move that track a little. And it's now sticking out this end by about, you can't see it, by about 4 or 5 inches. And I'm going to cut the Hornby track at this point and at the other end. And then I'm going to, at one end, have, it'll probably be that end as it happens, I'm going to have some fixed fish plates, just like Hornby track normally is, that you pick the bridge up and you slide it into place, you offer it to that end, slide it into place, drop it down at this end, and then you slide some fish plates on from the track that's already over the pier at that end. That's the theory, and that is the way that power will be sent to the bridge. There won't be any droppers on the bridge. Not easy to do, but there will be plenty of fish plates, rail joiners if you like, to transmit that power to the bridge, and it's just dead straight track anyway. Now, as I said, I didn't like the fact that it's very naked in here. When you put the track down, it just doesn't look right. So I'll get rid of that piece of track. As I said, what I decided to do was try to come up with a walkway system that goes across the bridge. And I have come up with that, and I've decided, I'm having a bit of trouble with the leg of my bench here, it's exactly in the place I don't want it. I have come up with a walkway system, and I will just assemble one here so that you can see what it will look like when it's inside the bridge. First of all, I can pick it up and not knock anything flat with it. First of all, there is a piece of track like this, which actually the weathering's not finished on yet. But if I bring it up closer to the camera, what you can see is that it's actually got, can't point to it like that, it's actually got some pieces of rail inserted in there and that side as check rails, and down the centre it's got a wooden walkway. Now, the check rails are made from Hornby, sorry not Hornby, this time it's Pico Code 100 rail, which is this stuff. Okay, now that's quite hard to buy. What I did find was very expensive. I couldn't believe how much they wanted for it. Would have cost me more than it ultimately cost me. I'm really struggling with this leg, sorry. It would have cost me more than it ultimately cost me by buying a piece of Pico track 1 yard in length and then just ripping off all the sleepers to leave me 2 yards of rail per length. That costs £3. That cost me £3, and I just bought 3 of those to do the 3 tracks on here. I couldn't have bought the Code 100 rail for that price. Well, not that I could find anyway. And what I do, let me just get that back again. What I do is, if we take that piece of track that hasn't had a rail put on it yet, what I do is I take the Code 100 rail and push it along the sleeper until it naturally stops at the raised pieces where the rail joiners are, here and here, and that is where I fix it. And I fix the whole length all the way on the cut down piece of track that's got a join in it because the Hornby track isn't long enough. And I fix it all over the whole length using super glue on about 3 or 4 sleepers at a time, and at intervals all the way down, keeping it pushed against the side rails and ensuring that the Hornby track stays straight, which isn't that difficult on a piece of track, but at the joint it's quite difficult because it will flex like that at the joint. So, and I do that both sides. So now I have a pair of check rails sitting in the track. I've then got to fit this wooden piece down the centre, and what I use for that is some strip wood that I bought, which is, if I can get hold of it, which is this stuff. It's Obechi strip wood, and it comes from, I bought mine from a company called Hobbies, which the website is something like Only Hobbies or Just Hobbies or something, but just type in Hobbies models and you will come up with a Hobbies shop. It's somewhere in Norfolk, and that's all I can remember about it, but I bought all my strip wood from them. And this piece of strip wood is 3mm wide and 1.5mm thick, and 3 pieces of that are too tight to fit in between these rails. So what I do is, using a couple of pieces of hardboard, here they are in fact, get rid of that piece of track because I don't really need it. I use a couple of pieces of 3mm hardboard, which I've knocked the edges down on a little bit, so it's not quite 3mm thick anymore, and I cut this to lengths of about 140mm, the strip wood that is, put 3 of them in here and then rub it down until, when I lay them side by side and measure them with my calipers, which are not in here, I get a width of between of 8.5mm plus or minus 0.1 mm. So that's 8.4 to 8.6, and I've found that is perfect then, a width to snap in between the rails, because this will sit in between the web on the rail can't seem to get my hand in the right place. It will sit in the web of the rail. It's fallen out, and it will snap in and stay there, and it won't go all the way down because the base of the rail, being flat bottomed, is much bigger than the head of the rail. And what I do is I assemble that with the strips offset from one another as they would be, so that all the joins don't appear in the same place going across, and I assemble that onto a piece of 0.5mm cardboard that is cut to make absolutely sure it doesn't touch the web at the bottom of the rail, not wide enough to hit it. So it's about, I think I use about 6mm wide. So I end up then with a piece, and I build it, the whole thing, the whole length of the bridge, with the bits of cardboard, and you just overlap it and gradually you build the whole thing up. And you will find then that you can just snap it in. Now what these check rails are for, and as you can see, I hope, at the end there, they're folded in a little. And what they're for, as far as I'm aware, is to prevent derailed vehicles from leaving the confines of the track. Because when a vehicle derails, one of its wheels must come off inside and one outside, and the one that's inside then gets held back from moving any further over. And in this case it will stop the vehicle leaving the confines of the track and smashing into the girders of the bridge, which would not do the bridge any good and would also be serious damage to coaches, passenger coaches, and hence any passengers in them. That's what I understand they are for on bridges. Not all bridges have them, but many do, and you can find this by watching some of the cab ride videos on YouTube. Excuse me again. I have had a bit of man flu. Yes, you can watch this by watching some of the cab ride videos on YouTube and not bothering to just look where you're going, but look at the infrastructure as you pass it. You'll be able to see all the track, all the electrics that run in the concrete trunking. That's the word I'm looking for. You'll be able to see everything that runs. You'll be able to see the concrete trunking and where it runs, and you'll see how often there are relay boxes, and you will see point motors, and you will also see any rudimentary things that they do at bridges, like this possibility. Okay, so you've got your big piece of wood here. I just have to take the ends off of it and then snap it into place, and it won't slide because the ends are holding it in. The result is I have some wood in between some bright rails that's that colour. Wood that colour. And then I have to weather it. Now I'm not going to talk about weathering yet, because this will be weathered exactly the same way as what I do on the outside, which we haven't looked at yet. So I'll move that over there. Well, no, I won't move that over there because I shall need that to show you what I'm doing. For the outside, what I have done is find the right piece. I have done this. Now this is made from balsa wood 1.5. 1.5? Let me make sure I don't give you a bum steer here. I think it's 1.5. No, it's 3. This is made from 3mm by 3mm balsa wood. Yeah, with planks on the top of it. Now, the way I do that, I will show you. I'm going to push that right over there now, and that, and I'm going to get something else. Now I will put that up there to get it out of the way for a minute. This is a small jig that I made. You don't need to see that end. Which is, I say I made a small jig. It's nothing more than a piece of straight Hornby track. It's actually 2 pieces because there's a join. Let's get rid of that. That was just to hold it straight, and it keeps. It's just a track set. There's a join there, and underneath it is some double-sided tape. And what I do is I cut this balsa wood that we talked about, this square balsa wood. Here is a length of it, also from Hobbies. And I cut it to the length that I want, and then I push it in against the sleepers, pushing it that way against the sleeper, and press it down. And it stays there because the tape holds it. That's right, me just knocked it out again. But of course, before I do that, I cut it to length, for which I use a master cut. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. It's just a very cheap plastic chopping thing. Just look up master cut and you will find it. It's made by a company called Amati, but you can buy them in all sorts of places. Many of you have probably seen them. I would like to get hold of a Micromark Chop It, but buying Micromark in the UK is virtually impossible. There doesn't seem to be an importer, and there doesn't seem to be an easy way of getting it. If you live in the States, you can get it easily, and there seems to be an easy way of getting it in Australia, because Luke Towan's always going on about he's bought a Micromark this or a Micromark that, but there's very few Micromark tools we can get here. So I use this Chop It, which is cheap, and I just stick a piece of plastic to it, then butt that up to it, chop it off, next one chop, next one chop, until I get a box of the pieces that I need. So they go in there and get fixed like that, and then what I use on the top is nothing more than these, which are coffee stirrers, you know, with the rounded ends. They're made of beach as far as I'm aware. I'm sure you can buy them. I got mine free when McDonald's used to supply them. And they come in slightly varying colours, as you can see. And I've probably got 500 or 1,000 of them. This is going to require about 150 of them, so it's quite a lot. But what I do is I then put 3 of them together, and that's how I know how long to cut my how long I need to cut my balsa wood, and one of them tucks in to the rail. Now this doesn't tuck into the rail because, let me get rid of those, this one is too thick. But here is one that I've prepared earlier in true Blue Peter fashion, which will tuck in to the rail. And the reason it tucks in is because I've made it thinner. These coffee stirrers are 5mm across and 1.5mm thick normally. What I do is I just lay them on the bench and get a Dremel or anything else you like with one of these sanding anvils in with a piece of sandpaper on it. And I just running the drill, I just run it backwards and forwards along there until with my caliper I can push that through. My caliper's set at 1.2mm. That guarantees that I can snap it into the rail. Now snapping it into the rail makes it look the same as this because this is below rail level, and it also ensures that the running rails are not going to have anything sticking up on them that's going to stop good running. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not trying to put barrows and things across. It's for people to walk on. So, and that's why these are marked red, because these are thinner. So I use one of those and 2 of these, and that is the width of my walkway with the, as I say, this 3mm by 3mm balsa wood. This is underneath it. Again, the balsa wood came from Hobbies. Okay, let's not mix that up. And what we then see is what I showed you earlier, which I can't find anymore. Oh yes, here it is. What we then get is that. I'll put it in the right place, it will sit properly against the rail. There you go. And it actually sits against the rail. And that is a finished piece. That's fully weathered and has some railings on it, which you have to have because these gaps here in the side of the bridge are enormous. Anybody could fall through there. And in the 1990s, when I modelled, there is no way health and safety would have allowed people to walk next to a railway with a drop on the side that is avoidable. Walking next to the railway isn't avoidable if you're a maintenance man. Having a drop the other side, which is a long way down from this bridge, would not be acceptable. So that's what we get. And here, as we say, I'll get rid of this jig now because it rather flares out the camera. I'll take it up the other end of the room and get it out of the way. I built all of the pieces that go along there. I have this piece, and I have this piece, and I have this piece. And they all fit together, so if you move that piece along, then this piece fits into it. Like, it does, I assure you it does. I'll get there in a minute. There it goes, it's in now. There we go. And they join together and the the railings are continuous. I can't put it all in one go, so I'm going to build it into the bridge in 3 pieces, and this piece likewise goes on the other end that you can't see. So what are these pieces? Right, well, they're what I've just said. 3 pieces, 3 lengths. I'm going to get rid of these because they are quite fragile. I'll show you why in a minute. But this is the one that goes right at the end. We have the 3 planks, which are the beach coffee stirrers, this one being thinner than the others. I'm not bothered that it's a bit up and down and bumpy. That's all to the good because it's rustic. It's probably made up out of the same kind of material that sleepers are made from, but they're planks. They wouldn't be whole sleepers, although what's resting underneath may well be sleepers, but you can't see those. As you can see up here, I do make sure that you can't see up there because I've just pushed that up. As you can see up here, I've made sure that the planks aren't all the same, don't all come at the same place for their joins. So there's a join there in the plank. The one next to it doesn't have a join in exactly the same place. I don't know how well you can see that because I'm just looking on a tiny little monitor screen on my camera. But the last bit that I do is up the side here. I have this fence piece, not the fence itself, but I have a wooden fence up here, which closes off the side, rises a little bit above the height of that, so that tools don't fall over the edge and stuff like that. If you put something down and then kick it, it doesn't disappear off the edge, which is a normal thing for scaffolding, etc. And the other thing is these, what we used to call key clamp. They're key something. What are they called? They're called tube clamp railings. Yeah, which is a good description. And they are from scalemodelScenery.co.uk. And I've painted them bright yellow using Vallejo golden yellow, number 7948. Now, fixing them, I haven't used the Scale Model Scenery method of fixing. This is a pack that you can buy from Scale Model Scenery. You can buy very short lengths, but they also do a length of longer pieces, which is LX17600. And they are 200 and something millimeters long. I can't remember how long, but again on their website it will tell you exactly. And what they recommend for fitting them is that you cut this piece here off by cutting these verticals right close to the bottom, along that line, along the line of this, and then glue the bottom of that to whatever you're mounting it to. Now I can just imagine never being able to get that straight on what I'm doing, and also that glue is not going to be strong enough for me to then manipulate this. I'll put the track in there. For me to then manipulate this into there with glue on it, drop it down, snap it into the corner of the track and get it in the right place, and then hold it down. And that's what it looks like when it's actually in there. I'm going to have to turn this round a bit more to show you, and it's hard work, because I don't want to smack this against anything. There you go. There is the railings in the bridge. They go just to there, and then the next section goes beside them. Now, as I say, I don't mount those railings in the way that Scale Model Scenery recommend. What I do is I keep this piece and I chop it off there and there, and this piece comes out with a base, and then I stick that base, you might just about be able to see it here, onto my side piece. There we go. And that then keeps the laser board that they're made from, keeps the integrity of all of the edges in place and makes a much stronger, I feel, joint. Yeah. I think this is an example of somebody saying to Justin, hey Justin, we love your tube clamps, but in this little pack that you give us here, which is a standard pack of tube clamps, they're all far too short. We want some longer ones. And as Justin always does, he responds with something that people ask for. And that is something that makes model railway scenery and scale model scenery a company that is just very different to many other companies, and they can respond quickly. Okay, so what I then do is simply glue that, as you see, onto the upstand, which is actually another piece of obeche strip, comes from what are they called? Hobbies. And this time it's actually the same length as I bought before when I made the lip at the front of my baseboards to hold them down and in position, and it's 6mm by 1.5. 6mm there, 1.5 there. So that's another strip, and that's again obeche. Right, then comes what makes it look the part. I've already mentioned the Vallejo paint that I paint the whatsits with, and I put it on thinned, so it does actually go on and leave some of the under surface showing through. Not too much of it, but a little bit of it, to make it look as if it's dirty. But of course it would still be quite yellow. And then how do we go about the weathering? Right. For all the weathering I use 1, 2, 3, 4 different colours. First of all, we have, and the first one that gets put on is from Life Colour. I don't know if anybody knows those paints, Tensichrome Life Colour paints. It's wood from their wood weathering pack, and it is warm dark shade, that's what they call it, and it's quite a dark colour. That goes on first. I do thin it quite viciously, but it's easy to wipe off if you put too much on. And I put that on all the wood first, yeah, and basically let it dry. Once that's dry, we go for another Life Colour paint again, and this one is from the wood weathering set again, is wood cold light shade, and it's very light, and again I thin that down an enormous amount, and that what I then get is what we've got here at the back. This is dark shade with white shade on top of it, with light shade on top of it, and it does let a little bit of the original wood show through as well, because I don't want this wood to look as if it's ready for replacement. I want it to look as if it's been there a while and already had a chance to weather to that grey shade that wood always seems to go. Okay, so that all the wood is done like that, and that includes what's between the track. That includes the bits that are in between the rails on the track. That's done the same way. What I then do with, and this is more selective now, if I can pick that up, bring the track back. What I then do, let's have that other piece back out of there for a minute. In the centre here, which is wood, which has already had the dark shade, light shade put on it, I then put some again life colour, and this one is from the rail weathering, and it's sleeper grime. And again I thin it quite a bit, and again I thin it a little, but not too much this time. I put a thinned version of it on the wood, but I also put it in between the rails and down to the sleepers, because that bit in there and in there are the only bit of the sleepers you're going to be able to see eventually. And it looks then, you can be convinced then that what they are is metal fixings that hold the rails onto the bridge, which is often the way it's done, I understand. So I put the sleeper grime, I did say sleeper grime, didn't I? Yep, sleeper grime in there neat, so it goes onto the rails and everything. And then I put a thinned version of sleeper grime on the wood. And I also put a thinned version of sleeper grime across a little bit more than that first plank down there. As you can see, there's a bit of it there, which is what the trains would have dropped when it rains and all sorts. That's the colour that track goes. But it wouldn't have come all the way out here, because there is a speed limit on this bridge. This is not a 125 mile an hour bridge. I'm reckoning the speed limit is probably about 50 miles an hour, so it wouldn't have thrown the muck too far. Because most of the muck gets thrown by the wheels. But you do get drips off of the track, off of the stock. So that's that. And then the last weathering that I do is with another life colour, which is a dirty grease effect, and that is horrible black. But what this does, all these first three just give you a flat, boring colour. But the oily one, the dirty grease, as you can see, look, shines. And I put that, generally I use that directly out of the tin, and I use a stippling brush to stipple it just along the edges, like that. And you obviously get a rough edge, and you get a little bit of the sleeper grime showing through, then you get through to the wood. In the centre of the track I put it all over, because that is where it would go. Now, this is not the same weathering as you would do on your normal track. What you've got to remember here is that ballast can be replaced on ordinary track, so the weathering doesn't tend to necessarily get as dirty on normal track, especially on high speed lines or passenger lines. But this doesn't have to have its ballast replaced, so that is how it's weathered. Put that in the wrong place, let me just get that in the right place. There we go. I haven't put it in the wrong place. That is the wrong way around. Put it round that way. Oh, no, it isn't the wrong way around. Excuse me. It is the wrong way around. I'm going a bit doolally here. Yep, that goes there. That's it, and it matches the end. Now I hope what you can see is that if I put it there, well, I'll lose the bottom bit of it. What I hope you can see is that you've got this dirty black tract here, and it will go to the other side as well. We can put one the other side, although it's not the right piece, so making it fit is going to be quite difficult. It's not the right piece, so it doesn't fit there. This belongs at the other end. But when we do that, now you can see, well, nearly, I can't get that to sit right. There we go. Get that in the right place as well. Now you can see what it will look like down the track. And you've got this dirty spot where the trains can run, and you've got the walkways where maintenance staff can walk, and you've got the railings either side that stop them from being able to fall through the sides of the bridge. So that's probably enough talking from me. I am going to wind the video up now and say thanks for watching, and do go to Scale Model Scenery's website if you want more information on all these things that I've used. As I say, other makes are available of various things. I'm not affiliated to Scale Model Scenery. Just think that they sell stuff that nobody else has thought of, it seems to me. Their girder bridges aren't the cheapest, but to me they are some of the best, and they match each other, so you can make bridge complexes with them easily. So, as I say, thanks for watching, and I'll try not to make it quite as long next time between videos, but I can't promise anything because we've got Christmas coming up now, and my modelling season does rather get curtailed during Christmas, because at the moment I'm sitting in my room. The temperature when I came in here was 14 degrees. It is now 18, but I've had a heater on, and it's an electric heater. There is a radiator down the other end of the room, but it doesn't really do an enormous amount in this room because it's got a flat roof and probably totally inadequate insulation. So I don't tend to do much in here during the winter. I work in the dining room or the living room on another little table, but I can't do that over Christmas or once the Christmas tree is installed, etc. So as I say, I'll be back when I can, but if I don't get back before Christmas, then all of you have a great Christmas, Happy New Year, and hope you get everything you want for Christmas. Bye for now.